So, back to school. Our teacher presented us with a writing assignment called My Most Fantastic Day. With a title like that, I sure as hell knew what I was going to write about. As always, our writings were accompanied by an optional drawing, which for me was the best part. I loved drawing back then. After writing up my story, I was drawing a grey, and so clearly remember having to use wax crayons. The problem was there was no grey-coloured crayon. I was pounding away, alternately left and right-handed, with white and black crayons to get the desired colour, which I managed. Some child looking over my shoulder said, "Aliens are green," to which I adamantly replied, "No, they're not, they're grey." Incidental as these memories are, they validate my experience. The teacher then asked us to read our accounts aloud to the class. I couldn't wait and read mine with understandable enthusiasm. The teacher interrupted me now and again to comment. For example, when I mentioned having something inserted up my bum, she said disparagingly, "This is supposed to be your most fantastic day." She had a point, though, and got a cheap laugh from the class. I can see the funny side now, but then felt I was being heckled. However, I was undeterred and, with a "wait, there's more" attitude, I continued with my story. Then I got to the part of how the craft stayed stationary and the explanatory image. The teacher, understandably confused, reiterated my confusing statement, "The red balls and the blue balls." There was yet more laughter from the class. Tough crowd. I wasn't making sense. I really wasn't able to convey that concept at all without the image that accompanied it. It must have sounded stupid, and I certainly didn't have the vocabulary to express such a concept at that age. Still, I ploughed on, getting to the all-important and invidious ride in the sky. When I'd finished my story, the teacher, intrigued and curious, actually asked if anybody else was there with me. Good question, but not for poor old Fritz. Matilda, I might add, was in a different class, who was sitting there looking a little red in the face. So I spilled the beans and said Fritz was there, but he was crying. I immediately sensed that this was a confidence I shouldn't have betrayed. To be seen as cowardly, girly, or a crybaby was shameful for a boy at that age. I clearly remember saying, in as comforting a way as possible to him, "It's all right." The teacher, meanwhile, persisted in asking him if he was there, on board the craft. Fritz's reply melts my heart, even today. He said, "I was there, but I wasn't crying." Isn't it wonderful how a child's mind works? That he would testify to an alarming paranormal experience with alacrity and yet clearly want the fact he was crying stricken from the record. God, how that makes me smile. I have done a fair amount of creative writing in my time, but doubt I could ever come up with such a sweet, characteristically childish contradiction. Okay, so the teacher was really confused now. This truly fantastic story had been unexpectedly corroborated. There was more embarrassment for Fritz, though. I can't remember what his most fantastic day was, some great ice cream feast or whatever, but it was obvious to all concerned that it, too, should have been about flying in the sky with aliens. The teacher asked bluntly, "Why didn't you write about that too?" He blushed again. Understandably, a painful probe going wrong isn't most people's idea of a fantastic day. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I submit to you the reason that the boy did not write his account of one of the most extraordinary experiences in the annals of human history is because he'd been crying. I rest my case. Bless him.